Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
Happy New Year's Eve, James. It's
Happy New Year's
31st.
Eve.
I mean, it's the end of another year.
Yeah, shit one, wasn't it?
It's not been the best. I'm actually possibly, in many ways, it's been one of the best ones. So I can't actually agree with it's been a shit one. I know everything that's going on with COVID, but when you kind of accept that we have to live with COVID, as opposed to it's going anywhere and there's going to magically wave a wand and in about 3 months' time we'll go back to the life that we had pre-March 2020. It's been a good year. My football team's probably given me one of the best years of my life ever. Family's all okay, touch wood, and kids are good. Work's been all right. So I can't. It's been difficult for a lot of people, though. I get it, and it's not going to get any easier. But I think now it's a case of learning to live with, rather than trying to wait for it to end.
I think I had my high on the low on the same day. Mourinho getting sacked, and it was the same day as like the Super League went bang, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like high and low on the same day, I think. So I couldn't even enjoy the bloody high. But yeah, Happy New Year, everyone. We should, before we get into this, we should timestamp this.
As always.
9:45 a.m. UK time. So if anything's announced prior to 11 o'clock in terms of fixtures, we're fucked.
This pod will date pretty quickly. But of course, keep an eye on James's Twitter feed at Planet FPL Pod.
No, keep an eye on Ben Crellins.
Well, yeah. But if you haven't got a lot of money, keep an eye on James's because he is the poor man's Ben Crellin.
That is absolutely spot on.
So we're going to review Game Week 20, which is just wrapped up. We ended up with 7 fixtures, didn't we, James, for this week?
I think so.
We have 9 lined up for Game Week 21. I know a lot of people are thinking about the bench boost, and everyone's got their new wild card in hand after tomorrow's deadline, isn't it, James?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, there'll be people on wildcard now.
Right.
Definitely. Because there's a lot of people obviously want to line up for the potential bench boost 22 blind. So if you're on it, good luck. There's no point saying any different at this point. I think there might be a number of people even choose the wildcard 22, depending on how the fixtures land. Although I think it's really difficult to say what's going to happen. I think a lot of free hits will end up active for Game Week 22. I'm not set to any chip strategy. I don't see how it can be without the knowledge of the fixtures at the moment.
There's plenty of good content out there, no least on Wednesday when we recorded our Sky Fantasy Football podcast. If you ever listen to that, jump into maybe minute 15 or something like that. There's a good rundown of what might drop where, but speculation's probably not a good thing right now because people end up making decisions blind and shooting yourself in the foot. So let's just wrap up our game weeks and then we can look at the fixtures as well. How did you get on, sir?
I don't know, I had 53 points. No, I'm in camp no Salah, which, I mean, it felt
Join
like...
the club.
Salah's hat-trick at Old Trafford was obviously massive. The penalty save felt like the biggest FPL moment of the season so far, to me. It was weird. When he went up to take it, I thought, he's missing this, you know. I just looked at Schmeichel and I thought, I mean, it wasn't a great penalty. He's a decent penalty saver, isn't he? Kasper Schmeichel.
Yeah.
And I just had a feeling he was going to miss. And I thought, as he was going to say, I was thinking, can you imagine if he misses this? The meltdown on that silly bird app. And I mean, yeah, sure enough, it was glorious. People didn't even need to say if they own Salah or not. You could tell by the tone of the tweets over the next couple of hours whether they did or they didn't. Listen, that obviously could have really gone very easily the other way. If he scores the penalty, Schmeichel made a brilliant save from Salah late, about 10 minutes later as well, an incredible save, which was better than the penalty save. Suddenly Salah's on like 16 points or so times 2, 32, and it's a very different game week for a lot of people. A lot of people would obviously free hit to part getting back, and the captain, I'm sure that obviously wasn't the sole reason, but yeah, you've been incredibly unlucky. And I think those who'd come off prior to Leeds, like I had, realised lucky escape. But the outlook on it for me was always, I knew that Leicester was going to be a problem, but over the course of 5 game weeks, he's got blank Leicester, Chelsea, blank. We make the decision over 5 game weeks to there's bound to be a bad one. And by the
Yep.
way, us non-Salah owners haven't escaped yet, because it's not like he can't go off against Chelsea or something. He can go off in any game, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the 53 points is particularly pleasing because nobody scored for me. And I feel like this might be the case for quite a few people.
No one scored. No goals.
And no goals scored, no.
Wow.
Cancelo clean sheet. Son captain assist. Josh King assist. Mikel Antonio assist. Jarrod Bowen 3 assists.
Yeah.
For 53 points. Blanks from De Gea, Trent, Rhys James, Bernardo Silva, Jota, and Armando Broja. I've got a defensive problem now. If you look at it, Suj, which I think a lot will suddenly have fallen into this particular position from looking at it and being back with a really strong 5. I'm now looking at it and going, well, it's only really Trent that I think I want to play this week, part because of injury, part because of a very unfortunate circumstance, and part because of the fixtures. So Trent went to Chelsea. I ain't bothered Trent play against anyone. João Cancelo's home was broken into, and he had some stuff stolen from his house while his family was there on that. And you have to think, I mean, it's such terrible. Did you see his Instagram post, Suj?
Yeah.
Like, some fucking scum in this world. I'm very reluctant to even speak about FPL in terms considering what's happened to the poor fella. But you have to think, as it's an away game as well, he probably wants to stay with his family, doesn't he? And I think that's completely understandable. So City said they'd made a decision today with obviously Cancelo in terms of whether he'd go and play or not. You'd have to think there's a good chance that he won't go and play. Rhys James left stand.
I just add an opposing opinion on it. I'd say there's a chance, but there's also just as much chance that he might want to get back to normal and just get out and show that nothing's happened.
That's very true. I'm more looking at it from the side of, like, if anybody's like angry that João Cancelo might not play this weekend, like, get a life.
This is a random story.
I can completely understand that he would want to be with his family completely. Yeah. If that's the choice he makes, doesn't mean he doesn't care about his family if he goes, because you're quite right. Maybe normal life, I'm sure City will put unbelievable protection for his family. Like, if he obviously does go, they'll step it up for all the players, no doubt. Rhys James obviously left Stamford Bridge on crutches. Now, that's a disappointing one, I think, for me personally, because my intention going this week was to sell Rhys James anyway. Though if he'd been fit, it would have solved the problem to go, okay, fine, Rhys James plays again. Dalot obviously got left out of the Man United team, which didn't surprise me. Doesn't mean he won't come back in on Monday night against Wolves. And I don't really want to look at Kieran Tierney playing against Man City. So suddenly I'm looking at a position where he had 5 good defenders. Now I might have Trent and Kieran Tierney for this weekend. So if that's the worst case scenario and it's Trent, Tierney, and I mean, I'm going to have to buy a defender now for Rhys James. I think the majority of us have, and we'll talk about some defensive options on this podcast. That's where I've got to go, which means the likes of Bernardo Silva, who I want to get rid of, is still going to hang around. It means probably the money in the bank I've got at the moment is possibly still going to hang around, because I'm sitting there with, I mean, I'm 0.1 short of being able to go like Broja to Kane. And it is a consideration to say, the beauty of Harry Kane at the moment, I've come to the conclusion thinking about, he's obviously on a little bit of a streak now. It's 3-3. It's not massive. It's what we expect on a good Harry Kane run. There's a good fixture this weekend. And the beauty with Harry is, you know, if there's double game weeks playing twice, almost certainly. And Tottenham are highly likely to have a double game week 22. And you think about it and think, well, that's one less problem. I know he's going to play twice. And then I can shove him out in 23 when Tottenham go to Chelsea, which I wouldn't want to look at Kane and Son in the team. And then that opens up the money freely to go back to Salah in 24. So that might be the sort of thing I look at for -4. Not that I really want to be taking a -4 for any Tottenham player at the moment, other than Son, who I already own. Yeah, to be honest, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Like many, you've obviously hoped some fixture announcement today.
Exactly,
because it really could influence the decision in terms of who to go to buy.
I think that's the problem for most people. Is
I'm not certain we're going to get anything today. You know,
no,
we might do, but I'm not certain.
It's just that it's like that. Okay, I need to make a transfer because I, like you, have a couple of problems that I'll get into in a sec, but the solutions to those problems would be different if I knew which teams had doubles in 22 potentially. I ended up with 68 points this week, James, which gave me a game week rank of 104,000, which I basically halved my rank back to where it was 3 weeks ago. I'd reached 122k, and then as soon as the postponement started kicking in, I dropped 140 down to 270, and back up to 143k now in the space of 1 week. Largely helped by having almost the best captain that you could have had this week in Cristiano Ronaldo yesterday. The difference between you and me, I think, is goals. I had a goal from Dennis, goals from Ronaldo, Son's assist, Bowen's assist, and Cancelo's clean sheet. So in a week where David De Gea bottled his clean sheet yesterday, just one leaky goal. Trent, also no clean sheet. Rudiger, and we'll talk about. Remind me also when we get to the West Ham Watford game to talk about red cards or tackles, because obviously Rudiger's was a little bit tasty on Wednesday. Eric Dyer was my one transfer for Kyle Walker, who's still MIA. And Dennis, a lovely finish for Dennis.
When Laporte scored as well, obviously it got disallowed, but I was thinking, wow, that difference of you at that moment, I was thinking that difference that you went Walker rather than Laporte has buried you so huge. Badly. Yeah.
The way I look at it is it's no, like Kyle Walker since Wildcard has scored fuck all points.
He hasn't played.
So has Bernardo Silva, to be fair. So it's like, would I rather not even have bothered? But it is what it is. My problem now this week, James, is that I have no bench. So my starting 11 as is: De Gea, Trent, Rudiger, Eric Dyer, Cancelo, ? Bowen, Gilmore, Jota, Son, Dennis, Ronaldo all have fixtures, and Backman, reserve keeper, has a fixture. But Ollie Watkins has no fixture now. Ollie Watkins does have a fixture. Billy Gilmore
does have a fixture.
Yeah, Billy Gilmore has no fixture. Javier Manquillo got his 5th yellow card, so he's suspended. And Conor Gallagher has the COVID. So I've got 3 players there that have no fixture. And I've got 2.8 million.
We have to assume that Conor Gallagher, as he played at Tottenham on Sunday,
So
and a week from there at least can't play against West Ham, surely.
No. So I've got no bench, which is my issue now. So I need to just have a think about what I'm going to do with my bench. I'm happy to. I think Manquillo to Ben Johnson. It's quite straightforward. It gives me a playing defender. He got decent minutes at the weekend. I think he came off at around about 80 odd for Masuaku. So Manquillo to Ben Johnson is probably the move that I'd like to make. Creswell's got a back injury, which is one of those where, it keeps dragging on a little bit and a little bit. It
feels like that.
It's not quite right. So they're going to take their time with him. So I think Manquillo to Ben Johnson is straightforward enough. And I might move on Conor Gallagher,
I'd just give a little second thought to selling Manquillo. Excuse me. Leicester Norwich is obviously off. Although I would add, it is possible that it's still played in Gameweek 21. Because in theory, it could be arranged for Tuesday, January 11th, which, unless FPL Towers moved to deadline, would mean it still stayed in Gameweek 21 as a possibility. We think that Southampton Newcastle is going to be postponed as well, which therefore you think, okay, yeah, sell Manquillo. It's another non-bench option. It's part me looking at it as well, going, maybe Breuer sell. But actually, if you look beyond this weekend, Suj, Newcastle got a really good run of fixtures, and I know there's an unpredictability because they could go and buy players. Manquillo played out of position at left back the other night. But it could be that he's kind of the first choice overall fullback, if you will. Their next fixtures are Watford, Leeds, Everton, Villa. Then it's West Ham away. Then it's Brentford, Brighton. Good run of fixtures, I would say.
Well, I mean, for a 4 million defender who's going to be second and third sub.
No, I get that. You might have. If the game goes at the weekend, I mean, the same applies to Southampton, Newcastle. I'd be very surprised if that got arranged at short notice because of the distance between it's the biggest distance between the two clubs in the Premier League. But in theory, Newcastle could easily have a double in 22, which with Watford at home as the first fixture would be quite attractive. It's worth bearing in mind. What are you thinking of doing? Johnson in for Manquillo?
Yeah, or time to bid off Billy Gilmore.
You got any money spare?
Yeah, plenty. If I let Billy Gilmore go, for example, it leaves me 7.2 million for a midfielder, which is not bad. It opens me up to maybe doubling up on West Ham with Ben Rama, but also the Arsenal boys, Saka, Smith Rowe and co. They're not ideal because obviously this week is Manchester City, but longer term, they're probably decent holds.
And no guarantee for a double in 22
No.
either for Arsenal.
Leicester, it's almost like, because there's so many key pieces of the jigsaw missing, Vardy, Barnes, now Maddison, it's like, do I want any of the other pieces of the jigsaw without those pieces? So Tielemans is a great shout because he might play further forward. He'll probably get penalties if Vardy's not on the pitch.
I mean,
do I want him without all his mates there?
The Leicester situation completely sums up what it's like to be an FPL manager at the moment. So Norwich gets spanked at Palace. Well, Norwich getting spanked again is not unusual at the moment. And immediately everyone, oh my God, Leicester next. Then Liverpool go and win later that night. You think, oh, wow, yeah, okay. Really interesting. Leicester players, even before they'd won. It's just like, all right, let's watch Maddison, Vardy and stuff. So Ian Acho, I presume, is going to AFCON. Maddison goes off injured. You think, oh, scrap that. So many people were preset in their mind, right, I'm going Maddison. Which makes sense, so particularly say like myself, Bernardo Silva to Maddison, for example. You think, Norwich at home as part of a possible double, brilliant. Let's have some of that. Then Vardy hobbles through the end of the game, looks like he does his hamstring. So but Vardy finishes the game because they'd had no subs left. So you think, oh, maybe he's all right. Daka's out injured. So Maddison, you think, well, he's gone off injured. He's definitely going to be out the weekend. Brendan Rodgers does his press conference. He says Maddison's fit, but Vardy's out for 3 weeks or so. And you think, oh my God, right, I'm back to Maddison. And then with an hour of the press conference, it was like, oh yeah, Norwich is going to get called off. He's going to get called off. So you just flip-flop. And that's why, again, don't overthink. Like the deadline's tomorrow morning, UK time, 10 a.m. I get, particularly as it's New Year's Eve, not everybody wants to leave their transfers till the morning. I get that. But until 5, 6 p.m. UK time tonight, wait in case there's some sort of fixture announcement. Make your decision tonight or tomorrow morning, obviously, preferably if you can. Don't get. I mean, there are probably 6 or 7 transfers I can make this week. I'm not overthinking it till I get to this evening.
And unlike you, I'm not sure. Obviously, you said you're not fixed in your transfer strategy.
Rhys James has got to go. I know that.
Yeah, true. It was a hamstring, so you're talking weeks, not days. I'm quite open to free hitting in 22. They're giving us an extra free hit. Like if the doubles line up nicely, and I can really steam into triple Spurs, for example, if you've got the Leicester game, and there's a couple other teams that I can triple up on and steam into, then I'm quite up for free hitting in 22. Which means I'm not necessarily buying a player for that. Dennis not going to the AFCON is a massive deal.
I can't believe that.
The 2 fixtures that he was going to miss for sure, Newcastle and Norwich.
Yeah.
Ones that I look at and I'm like, oh, man, you know what? Dennis has outscored Josh King since wildcard comfortably. But those 2 fixtures alone could be the difference between keeping King versus Dennis.
Yeah.
Which I know is a decision you made.
Well, I might go back to what the original was.
But now he's...
And just reverse it and go back to Dennis for the 2 weeks. And do the same thing. Make the decision on the 2 players at the end.
I look at it and I'm like, that's a blessing. That's a touch. He's not going anywhere in Emmanuel Dennis. So it's really just toying around with my bench. Dennis is up to 38% ownership. He's got incredibly high ownership for.
Well, it would be a lot more if it wasn't for the fact he was going to go to AFCON. And there's been loads of Mickey taking this week about, oh my God, why are people still buying Dennis when he's going to AFCON? We think that Nigeria didn't submit enough notice to Watford in time. I know Adam Leventhal was the Watford correspondent for the Athletics. He's confirmed the news this morning that like Dennis is not going. And there was some speculation that Dennis was frustrated with Nigeria because they'd left it so late. There was rumours before. We got told all along. Joe Finney-Badder, who's very well connected with Watford, had said, look, he's had a bust up with the coach. This was a month ago. He's like, it's not going to go. Then the coach got sacked and he opened up again. So it might even beat it. Yeah. I'm not sure if I want to take a -4 if I've got to get rid of Rhys James, really. I'm not sure if I want to take a -4 for Dennis now. But if Breuer hasn't got a fixture as well, then it kind of becomes very justified if I think that's the right move. And I wouldn't rule it out. I'd say Dennis has leapt above others I would have been considering right now, like Watkins, Calvert-Lewin, because of the possibility of Watford having a double. You know what? It's not impossible, so it could even be a treble. It's not impossible that Watford could have a treble game week of something like Palace, Newcastle, Burnley. Because if there are a load of fixtures get chucked into that midweek of the 11th, 12th, 13th, like if it gets announced now, fine. It's obviously double game week 21 and the game week won't finish for like 12 days or so. Fine, we get it. But if they're announced after deadline tomorrow, I don't know what they're going to do. Do they treat it as tough shit? You weren't aware of the fixtures, but that's when they're played. It's before the next deadline. Or if there's loads, like I think if there's 3 or 4 fixtures going to that midweek, which I'm not overly confident is going to happen, could they bring the deadline forward to the Tuesday? No. And then it's midweek Tuesday till the next following week Thursday and becomes a treble game for a few teams?
I don't think so. I don't think they want to mess with the deadlines. The games will go where they go.
No, but do they want to mess with the FPL manager?
Well, we know.
You know what the reaction would be. The reaction would be, it's not fair. I didn't know. Well, all we can do is look at it and say there are a number of fixtures that possibly can go into that midweek on Tuesday 11th, Wednesday 12th, Thursday 13th. And Burnley, Watford, I'd say Crystal Palace, Everton, Leicester look like they're the teams most primed to potentially have a fixture. Possibly Southampton, Brentford as well. Although Southampton have only got 1 game to rearrange currently, but obviously if Newcastle's off, it does become 2. Southampton, Brentford possibly as well. Those are the ones who look most primed to go in there. If you've got 3-4 fixtures suddenly get added to the game week with no prior knowledge, people are going to be in uproar. To be honest, I would look at it and go, yeah, tough shit. But I would also understand if they went, no, that's not right. We're going to bring the deadline, which is set for Friday anyway, in game week 22. We're going to bring it forward to the Tuesday. And then imagine you've got teams like Watford, Leicester, Burnley have suddenly got treble game weeks and stuff. I think you probably, nearly everybody would be in free hit territory, wouldn't they? But if it doesn't work that way and the deadline doesn't move, it could very well be that it just lands in a certain way. I like you and very much, free hit 22. If that's the right decision, fine, do it. But also it'd be nice to land in a position where it didn't need to get used. Obviously, you only need the 11 players unless you're bench boosting. So if it drops quite nicely, then I might look at it and go, well, I've got 9 doublers here. I'll take a -4 for 2 more and save the free hit for another day. Because I think there is going to be shit that crops up that we don't expect, like games in Champions League midweeks and stuff like that. It's going to have to happen. So, yeah, ideally, I'd like to not even use that.
Let's see. Let's talk about some of these games, the 7 games that we did have midweek, and if it's shedding any light on any players that we own that we might want to be getting rid of, or any other players that we are now looking at, and obviously what it's done to the league table and the title race and all that kind of stuff as well. Starting with, and this was the week that we made some, I wouldn't call them predictions, but had some opinions that actually ended up being worth something. Starting with Crystal Palace 3, Norwich 0. Keep your eyes on Odsonne Edouard, folks, says James.
You know what? Yeah. I mean, you look like a genius afterwards, but I'm not having it, right? No one's a genius for tipping up a forward against Norwich at the moment. I'm really not. And actually, I got quite spooked. I'd made the decision not to buy him because the more when I looked at all the players that were unavailable for Palace, I'd come to the conclusion that Mateta was going to have to play. And I knew that meant Edouard would go into like a wide position, most probably. So that alone was enough to make me go, no, it's not going to be for me. And then the news broke sort of in the morning of the game. Well, Benteke is going to be in the squad as well. So then it was a definite no for me. But I think I still would have been on the opinion if I'd been on free hit, like I know a few people were. I know Tom Cannell from Who Got Your Assist went with Edouard on free hit. Then yeah, he would have gone in. He would have gone in definitely. Yep. But it's not revolutionary to tip up a forward against Norwich. Like it would have been Leicester next to tip up. Then it would have been then it's Calvert-Lewin in 22. Then it's King or now Emmanuel Dennis in obviously game week 23. Oh, game week 24 is Palace again, by the way, ironically. So yeah, I'm not taking that as like, oh, I'm a genius. I tipped up odds on Edouard. I don't feel that way about it at all, mate.
It doesn't really feel particularly like now is the time to be looking at Palace with West Ham this weekend, Brighton, who we've just seen give Chelsea a great game on Wednesday as well, and then Liverpool straight after that. After that, they go into Brentford, Norwich, Brentford, then Chelsea, then Burnley and Wolves. So maybe if you've got a Gallagher or whatever, it's not the worst to hold if you have value built up in him like I do. But you're not necessarily looking to steam into Palace right now. Does the
Yeah, I
doubles
think
reflect that in any way? Not really.
Gallagher's obviously the main one to discuss because there's lots of people obviously not on the Twitter bubble, and it kind of exploded on Twitter a few hours before kickoff that he was obviously probably going to be out. I don't think it's a straightforward sell because, as I said, they're one of the ones who really could have a fixture. I think in both midweeks. So it might be worth, if you weren't bothered about him playing West Ham and you've got the bench cover, I can understand why people might still hold on to him. The only thing is, you're probably walking into another problem with like a Liverpool fixture in 23, but it's worth saying Liverpool will obviously be missing their African contingent from that fixture. So I don't think
That's
it's a
the thing.
definite sell.
That Liverpool fixture. I mean, give me Liverpool without Salah and Mane, and who else is off to the AFCON? Naby Keita.
Naby Keita will go, I suppose. Not that I would put him in Liverpool's if Klopp's got everyone. I think the best midfielders three is Henderson, Fabinho, and Thiago. Probably, isn't it?
Yeah, but just taking Salah and Mane out means that Palace, will look at that fixture and be like, well, if we've got a chance, we've got a chance. So yeah,
they lost once at home as well so far this season, which is impressive.
Yeah, let's see if we can make it twice tomorrow. I'm holding Gallagher for now. I'd rather sell Billy Gilmore and upgrade, and if I need to find money, downgrade Conor Gallagher later. But I bought Conor Gallagher fairly cheap. I bought him at 5.6. He's 6.2, so that's quite a lot of value to lose in him. So I'm going to let it ride for a little bit longer.
I saw so many people sold Gator.
And I bought him in the -56 league.
So many people sold Gator, and I really feel for you because you had to think that he was probably going to be out again with only kind of the 2-day turnaround from Tottenham and stuff. The fact that he'd been left out for the Southampton game the other week as well, there was rumours of a dislocated finger. And obviously he's came back in. And for those who haven't seen it as well, obviously he's kept a clean sheet. So nearly scored an own goal. He's basically ended up punching one against his own bar as well, which was just basically Norwich's best effort on goal in the game. So yeah, terrible luck. I tell you what, Tyrek Mitchell is not just for FPL, kind of in and without fantasy, is a name really to keep an eye on. I was so impressed with him at Tottenham last weekend. And he's got more kind of plaudits following that performance in midweek. He is solid as at left back, and he's beginning to improve offensively as well. I really like him as a player, and I think he's one to keep an eye on as the season goes forward. Norwich, oh man,
why are Norwich fans?
I don't want to talk about Norwich anymore. I feel bad about it.
Okay, let's not talk about it from a footballing point of view. Why are they so mad at Billy Gilmore? Because I've seen the Twitter videos and the stuff circulating.
Yeah, most of us seen it.
It's not a rumor or a speculation. They were chanting. They want him gone.
Yeah, I've seen the video.
He's clearly the best. He's one of the most talented players.
But if you listen to Norwich fans, they think he's shite, mate.
Wow.
Now you and I wouldn't say fans of Billy Gilmore, but like we raved about him in the summer, like performance for Scotland against England.
He's definitely got ability.
We saw it for Chelsea last season as well. Like he's definitely a footballer in there that, for whatever reason, right now he's not working for Norwich, or certainly not working for the Norwich fan base. Again, I obviously saw Norwich, and Norwich played okay at Tottenham a few weeks ago, and I was impressed with Billy Gilmore. He played in more of a deep line playmaker role. Kept the ball ticking over really nicely. He's not kind of an aggressive holding midfielder, but that's not the type of player he is. So to see them chance, and I was aware that Norwich fans have been saying, look, he's shit. To see the chance, which you can find quite easily on social media, of fuck off back to Chelsea, is quite clearly aimed at him. They were also singing to generally everybody there, you're not fit to wear the shirt. And once you hit that level, you are at rock bottom. It doesn't get worse than a set of fans telling their own players, you're not fit to wear the badge that we support, right? There's no lower. So Norwich have probably hit their lowest point. The fact that they're not playing this weekend is probably a good thing for them as well, because you couldn't see anything other than Leicester just tearing them a new one as well, right? So
yeah,
I think you should. Now you're considering what Manquillo to Johnson. Like I think you should consider like Gilmore to Jacob Ramsey, maybe.
I'm bidding Gilmore sort of now. I think what you've said with Manquillo has made me think moving Gilmore on is more of a priority. I've got money. I would have said
Dewsbury Hall as well if that fixture was on. Who's 4.4, has been right under the radar. Obviously got the assist against Liverpool, and he looks a lovely little footballer. I think I wouldn't say he's a nailed start at Dewsbury Hall, but consider him certainly very much part of the first team setup now at Leicester. So have you got nothing in the bank?
I've got plenty. I can go to 7.2 million.
Oh, well, don't go to Jacob Ramsey then.
No,
get a proper
exactly.
player.
That's what I was saying. I've got money. I might even go to Martinelli. You know, the disadvantage with Martinelli obviously is that there's a blank in 25 and a blank in 27. But the advantage is if there's blanks in 25 and 27, there's doubles elsewhere. So even Saka, I have enough money for.
I think Arsenal, we'll just pick that up quickly because we're not going to talk about Arsenal otherwise. But it's City at home, Tottenham away. Now, they could have a double against one of after Tottenham, Chelsea away, Liverpool at home, or Wolves at home.
All garbage.
Well, I actually have a suspicion that the most likely might even not be the Wolves one. Which then that's not a terrible double, Tottenham away, Wolves at home, but it's not brilliant either, certainly for the attacking players. Then it's Burnley at home, then it's possibly Wolves away again, then blank, then Brentford, then blank, then Watford. Now, we don't know when, certainly if the Wolves game is fixture, we can certainly narrow down the prospects of when the Chelsea-Liverpool games get rearranged. And I'd be fairly certain, actually, that if Arsenal don't play Chelsea in game week 22, which is possible, then I think Chelsea and Arsenal might end up staying in game week 25, you know, as in its original point, and it would just be played in the midweek afterwards because Chelsea have the midweek afterwards free because they don't have Champions League involvement. So it might even be that Chelsea and Arsenal fits right back into its original 25. Point in 25. Now, listen, it's Chelsea away anyway. How excited are you by it? And it could even be that Liverpool away, which was for Liverpool at home in 27, which would be postponed because one of the two teams will be in the Carabao Cup final, might get brought forward to 26, which actually would give Arsenal a double with Brentford at home and Liverpool at home. So from looking at it going blank, it might even be that there's no blank in there, and it might even be there's a double before the second, two doubles before the second blank. So you've got to be aware of that, the Arsenal. But the fixtures that don't, like City at home, Tottenham away, the moment's gone, isn't it? Whatever you've got Arsenal, it's fine. I wouldn't be rushing to think, oh, it's Man City this week, I have to sell Arsenal players. No, not at all. But I wouldn't be buying at this minute in time, Suj.
No. Let's move on to Southampton 1, Spurs 1, because sticking with North London, and we'll talk about Spurs in a sec, I feel like almost the time to buy with Spurs might have passed by if you're buying to hold long-term. Watford away is obviously a good fixture this weekend, but Arsenal, Chelsea, then Southampton that you've just struggled against, who sat in deep, albeit this time will be at home. Then Wolves, who defensively are stingy. Then City. So you've got about 5-6 difficult games. Sprinkle in a potential game against Leicester, maybe. Not going to be easy, or will we?
I think that's what
their team out.
I think that's what it's going to be for Tottenham. By the way, is Watford away, then double of Arsenal at home, Leicester away. That's really what I think it's going to be.
Talk about Southampton first, and then we'll wrap up Spurs. But they were decent. I mean, for them to get 4 points from West Ham and Spurs over 2 days, they're going to be super happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I mean, we discussed this on our Tottenham podcast on Wednesday. I saw the Southampton team, and like many, went, fucking hell, cheers.
Yeah.
Like the amount of changes they made, obviously, no Livramento, no Breuer, even I'm a fan of Oriol Romeo. They changed so much of the team. Back five of Walker Peters, Valerie, who hadn't played all season, Bednarek, Salisu, Peral, Armstrong, Diallo, Ward-Prowse in front of that. Adam Armstrong ended up playing basically the whole game on the left of midfield, poor soul, and worked his nuts off. And Shane Long up front. It was like, what? Where's that come from all of a sudden? But it must be said, before I whinge about Spurs, I won't do too much, but Southampton, up until the red card, were a better team by distance. They deserved to have the lead. They really bothered Tottenham with their pressing, their high intensity. They came with it. I think that's why Hassan Hutel obviously changed so much of the personnel, was to go at Tottenham with a fresh team that could run more than anything. They played the better football, thoroughly deserved to be ahead. And then obviously from the red card, they defended so well. And
Salisu,
although I always
he's an aggressive defender, and he's all right. The only thing I rate Salisu for is something I saw on Sunday, mate. He's one of the very few defenders that I've seen Mikel Antonio bounce off rather than the other way around. The defender bounces off Antonio. There was one moment when Antonio was running through and Salisu stood his ground and Antonio bounced off him. And I was like, anybody that is tough enough to handle that gets a little bit of kudos in my book than Salisu. But he's generally a little bit too aggressive sometimes.
He's no kudos for the red card, because for those who didn't watch the game, what you wouldn't have seen, the first yellow card looks really harsh, and an isolated incident it is, but it was like his third foul in about 10 minutes. So it was a total enough
persistent fouling.
Exactly that. And then obviously on Sonny, it's a certain yellow card. Under previous rules, it obviously would be a red card. To be fair, he didn't argue the decision or nothing. As soon as he gave the penalty away, he started walking off the pitch. He never even looked at the red card. He knew what was going to happen. But yeah, Southampton did really well to, the fact, I thought Valerie was really good, because he's a fullback who I've never thought much of, considering he played at centre-back. I mean, he really put a shift in. James Ward-Prowse, excellent in midfield. As I said, Adam Armstrong, he barely touched the ball left-hand side of midfield, but put a shift in for the team and stuff. They had one breakaway moment with Breuer near the end. I think from an FPL perspective, it's worth saying what we said. We think that there's a good chance that the Newcastle game is going to be off. Obviously, Newcastle game at Everton didn't happen last night. So I definitely think that can go. And then suddenly you look at the fixture and go, Wolves away, City home, Tottenham away, United away. Looks like a bit of a grim spell, actually. You've got 3 away games, which look tough, and City at home sandwiched in the middle as well. But Southampton could have games against Newcastle / Brentford rearranged, and you've got a double or 2 landed in there as well. But having ironically made the original decision on wildcard, let me judge Dennis or Keng, then I'll make my judgment and move to Breuer. The obvious one was to move Dennis on because of AFCON. I might even just reverse it. I'm not stubborn enough not to reverse that transfer, and it might be that I just go, yeah, sod it. I'm going to go Breuer back to Dennis because the immediate on Watford is so good. And then I can switch that back again with Southampton's fixtures look good in 26. Might be the decision that the Southampton do have a really lovely run from game week 26, which is worth keeping in the back of your mind. Otherwise, you're not investing in that team at the moment, especially, like I said, even if you didn't have the decision before deadline, I would not advise buying a Southampton player because they're playing Newcastle. That game has to be in danger.
Sonny's got up to 25% ownership now, which is low for Heung-min Son generally. And Harry Kane is less than 10%, which is relatively unheard of in FPL. There'll be, even as dead teams that own Harry Kane.
There'll be a lot of interest for both of them over the next 24 hours, because I think the short-termism generally for most FPL managers is what it is. And you mentioned about not buying Tottenham players long-term because of the fixtures. Now, Sonny's a different case because Sonny's so consistent, you can leave him there. He offers a nice kind of understudy captaincy for Mo Salah, and I think he's going to be a very popular captain pick this week because of the upcoming fixtures, and he's likely who I'm probably going to captain. But Kane's under consideration for me, kind of come back round for exactly that. Actually, short-term thinking, exactly what I said, and looking, going, Watford away, Watford look rubbish defensively, let's be honest. And then it's Arsenal at home and probably Leicester away as a double. Now, it's not a brilliant double, but give me Harry Kane when I've got money excess, which I don't need to spend at the moment. Can I have him for those three fixtures effectively in 2 game weeks and expect him to return in both game weeks? Well, yeah, probably. There's no way Harry Kane's worth the money. Absolutely no way. But at the moment, because Mo Salah's not in the game for myself, Kane's obviously very affordable. And I made the decision to ignore Ronaldo the last week. I think it might be a mistake for me to ignore Kane again. I'm not sure. Ironically, I'm possibly buying one of the forwards from the Watford Tottenham fixture, just not 6 million more expensive than the other.
The other.
He probably does fall down. So am I making a short-term decision or am I making a medium-term decision? I don't think neither player, Kane or Dennis, are long-term decisions at the moment.
Yeah, and the other side of the equation, obviously, is you've got to move on Rhys James because of his hamstring injury. I bought Eric Dyer this week. Disappointed to see that you didn't keep a clean sheet, but I'm quite comfortable with that. There's the only games that I'm likely to bench Dyer in is the Chelsea game and the City game. I'll play him against Watford and Arsenal and Southampton and Wolves. So I'm quite comfortable at 4.6. If he ends up being benched, he ends up being benched because Rudiger, Trent and Cancelo are my main 3 defenders. What are your thoughts on replacing Rhys James? Did any of the Spurs boys get into the shortlist or not?
Yeah, they are. The outstanding options, Region. Obviously, if he's affordable, and at the moment it is. what I want to do with Region is just check before, and this is worth anybody doing if you're not using chips in a couple of weeks or think you might not be, just sense check how you're going back to Mo Salah in game week 24. It's worth doing. Just have, doesn't have to be locked in terms of, you know, your transfer for your next 3 weeks, but just have a look and, okay, come 24, I'm possibly going to want Mo back immediately. How am I doing it? And it might be that sense checking to say, do you know what? Okay, yeah, I can afford Region, but I might be better off going with Eric Dyer, for example, because that little bit of money, remember there's price changes as well, right? That 0.67 difference might be kind of blocks me further down the line. Region got taken off at halftime. I had so many DMs. What's the story? Region got taken off at halftime. And I know they're from people who just didn't watch the game. So there was nothing wrong with Region's performance. I've spoken so much about Region and Emerson and the fact that they are going to be rotation threats when there are games in close proximity because of the amount of work they have to do up and down the pitch. They have to play in a back five and without the ball, and they have to play in basically a front 4 or 5 with the ball. They've basically got to be defenders and attackers the whole game long. Now, the Palace game became Stroll. Otherwise, I think there's a good chance they wouldn't have started at Southampton. Region was taken off because it was the only Tottenham player on a booking. And it was very clear from the last few minutes of the first half that Southampton were going to target him to try and get him wound up for a second booking. So that's the only reason why he got taken off. He's definitely first choice. But I think, like, in sense of people will say, is he nailed? Like, can I guarantee you that Region or Royal will play twice in a double game week? No.
I hate that question. Is he nailed? It's like, and I understand why people ask it, but it's like you can't predict what managers are thinking.
What I can tell you is first choice, definitely.
And he's the most attacking threat.
What people want when they say the word nailed, I think, is that what they want to say is this player going to play 38 games? Well, unless you're James Ward-Prowse, basically, then next to nobody's going to play 38 games. So, but the wing backs for Tottenham in a double game week are definitely a rotation risk. You could look at Leicester away, definitely play. Listen, if we play Arsenal at home and then Leicester away on a Wednesday, I cannot promise you that wing backs won't be Region and Doherty at Leicester.
Yeah.
The centre backs, Dyer is more locked. I know that Tottenham are looking at 3 particular positions at the moment: a right wing back, not necessarily to replace Emerson, but just that the replacement Doherty is so shit. They're looking at a left-sided centre back, which Ben Davies owners should be aware of. So it would be Dyer over Davis at the moment. And Tottenham are looking for a forward player of some. That's what Tottenham are looking to try and do in January. So left wing back, Region is first choice, Sessegnon is backup. When Sessegnon is fit, he will get some minutes. Just purely because the work they have to get through is unbelievable. Tottenham did not play well, Suj. No. Did not play well at all. Didn't do enough. Didn't take enough of the advantage. We still have major issues when teams come against us like that. Even if they're a man short, put the block up and go break us down. Now, listen, Forster's made 10 saves. So it wasn't like it was terrible, but he didn't make any truly great saves or astonishing. I'm not interested in debating the disallowed goals. Tottenham had more than enough time to put the ball in the net and failed to do so. It is an issue. This team is best equipped and best set up to play quick on the counter-attack against teams rather than have to break teams down.
Watford 1, West Ham 4. Another prediction that we made. Well, I made 4-1 and
I laughed 1-1
in your game. Yeah, it was pretty accurate. Well, the thing is with West Ham, we always create chances. Not always, but...
Did you think it was accurate when Dennis scored after 5 minutes?
Well, yeah, I thought, thank God, because we started the game rather slowly.
You thought, thank God, when Watford scored.
Sometimes
you're a strange human, you know that.
Sometimes a goal kicks a team into life. Sometimes a goal is like, oh, shit, okay, we can't get away with coasting here because if we do, something bad's going to happen. And it was early enough in the game that it was perfectly fine. It's like 6-7 minutes or whatever it was. So I'm like, you know what? You can't... If we played like we did in the first 7 minutes, the rest of the game, we deserve to get slapped. So, yeah, I don't mind if the opposition scores early and it's like, okay, the wake-up call is here now. Go and sort yourselves out. And West Ham did for the rest of the game. I think it's so easy to kind of summarise. The simple for this was routine. Watford are not good at the back. Backman's average. Cathcart, Feminia, all of these guys, Messina, were shaky. They haven't got... Sissoko is like a one-man midfield trying to Marshall, Tufan and Kutska and stuff. They haven't got enough about them. the only place you're going if you're going Watford is King or Dennis. I like João Pedro. He looked lively when he came on, but you're not going to get minutes out of him. So why are you wasting a spot on him when King and Dennis are so cheap? I think Watford will still score a few goals in the coming weeks, but they're not going to keep many clean sheets. So Backman, for example, if they had a triple game week that you alluded to, I don't know if I'd still play him over De Gea, because I don't trust them to keep a single clean sheet. Yeah, I think Dennis is worth considering. If you haven't already, considering how high his ownership is. I'm not looking at Josh King to double up. That's not appealing for me in any way, shape, or form.
Backman is averaging 2 points per game.
Yeah, shit.
So he's got 16 points from 8 games. That includes the fact half of those points were in a 1-0 defeat to Tottenham. I mean, he made 7 saves in game week 3. And game week 15, they lost 3-1 to Man City and he got 4 points. It's actually some of the tougher fixtures. He's actually got the points that you couldn't look at them and say clean sheet, could you? I can't believe I'm saying this when I'm going there tomorrow. Do you know who the highest scoring Watford defender is in FPL? Don't cheat.
Cathcart? No.
He's, go on, I'll give you that. How many points?
20?
It's 17.
Oh, ouch, that's brutal.
Bruv, that's like how many games they've played. Do you realise this?
West Ham, on the other hand, again, another team that are not going to be looking to keep clean sheets. Dawson got sat on his arse for the first goal, well, Dennis's goal. And Diop and Dawson did look shaky at periods in the game, but generally Watford didn't have enough of the ball in the attacking third to create any threats. If you don't own Bowen, he's going from strength to strength. Sometimes a player is in form, you just jump on it, and Bowen's in that vein of form right now. Not only that, everyone else knows it, so he's always being looked for as the out ball. He can play a number of different positions, but Bowen is on fire as the song goes. Yeah, I wouldn't think twice about jumping on Jarrod. About jumping on Jarrod Bowen's thing. Do you know what I did yesterday? So,
someone's jumping on Bowen's.
I said to my missus, because I don't really use Instagram. I was like, I said to my wife, who does use Instagram, can you follow Danny Dyer XX? She's like, why? And then I showed her a picture of Jarrod Bowen. And I was like, can you, every time Jarrod Bowen appears on Danny Dyer's Instagram, can you let me know, please? Because I'm not going to log in. She's like, why don't you follow her? I was like, I'm not going to be having none of that. I want to keep tabs on Jarrod Bowen by following Danny Dyer's Instagram now. He's worth it. Antonio is looking fit, and he had a decent game. Such was
hang on. Everybody just puts their phones down and goes, "No, not buying Antonio." Then we know your history with Antonio.
No, yeah, he's looking all right. I wouldn't particularly. I'm not going back for Antonio at the moment. Ben Rama hit the bar with a shot outside the box. So, and obviously he scored 2 in 2. He's dropped down to 5.9 million now, James. If you fancy the double up, he's always in and around it. He hit the heights of 6.6 at one point and down to 5.9 now. A decent performance all round from West Ham. You'll still see goals. Any of them, not bad shouts, but
Bowen was someone we really spoke about in late October, November, when you were coming into that kind of more difficult run of fixtures and went, yeah, do you know what? Time's probably not now, but as soon as you get to the other side, go and buy him. And I've obviously had him in from wildcard.
Same as me,
I want to say from around about December the 12th or something, whenever I wildcarded. And I just think he offers incredible value. He loves a shot. He can go left or right when he's running at people. We know he's basically the OOP cover should anything happen to Antonio. We've seen that as well. And quite right what you said, he's on a little streak as well. So I think you've got everything going for Jarrod Bowen at the moment. Palace away is a difficult fixture this weekend, although they're not going to be at 100%, it's worth saying. And I think you'll probably go down and win, actually, Suj. They could also land West Ham. West Ham's one of the more difficult ones to read from a double game week perspective. So there's only one game to rearrange, which is Norwich at home. Yep. And you think, oh, yes, please.
Your boots time, yeah.
And also your other fixture in 22 is Leeds at home. Now, if it's Leeds at home and it's Norwich at home, we discussed this a few weeks ago. If you're free hitting, you're probably going free West Ham. You're probably going...
Oh, without doubt.
You were going Bowen, Antonio, and one more. And I'm quite happy that I'm now sitting there with Bowen and Antonio in case it happens. A few things need to fall into place for it to happen. One, Watford Norwich fixture needs moving because that's been scheduled for the Friday night in game week 23. And because West Ham play Leeds on the Sunday, obviously there isn't a 3-day gap for both teams.
Either.
So unless something gets moved, and West Ham Leeds definitely won't get moved, then the fixture basically won't go into that week. It could go into the midweek before. And it could suddenly be that by the end of today, we're looking at a double game week of Palace away and Norwich at home. How many people do you think will go into Bowen and Antonio?
Yeah, plenty.
If that's the case.
So should you. Good little run and good opportunity to make up some
That's exactly what I mean by saying, if you can wait for the fixture list before kind of think, I need to make this move, I've got to do this. You might even sit there, I've got to get rid of Rhys James. If that double lands now, for West Ham, Crystal Palace away and Norwich at home, you may even be in a position of going, I'm not getting rid of Reece James now. I got to leave that. I've got to buy the West Ham players.
Yeah.
So that could very quickly be the case. So, I mean, those two, I'm pleased that they're in. I know, I could have gone Ronaldo this week rather than Antonio, but I think the prospect of that Norwich game that it might happen means I'm really pleased to have those two. And of course, that for those perhaps not free hitting in 22, can I look at Bowen and Antonio as single game week players at home to Leeds? Yeah, this is what I mean about maybe not using the free hit. You look at teams in that week who might not have a double, like for example, most of us will have at least say double Liverpool at the moment, even with Salah going, say Trent and Jota, for example. Liverpool got Brentford at home in 22, could yet be a single. West Ham got Leeds at home, could yet be a single. And I'm looking at it going, do I want to free hit them players out just because they haven't got a double?
Maybe not.
Not sure that I would actually, right? So yeah, I'd keep them attacking West Ham players on side. West Ham's home games after that, by the way, Watford in 24, Newcastle in 26. But I think that Norwich fixture is no guarantee to land in the next couple of weeks, actually. Because West Ham don't play till the last 16 in Europa League, there is no urgency. There are a couple of other available midweeks. I think it's 24 and 25, I want to say, where the fixture could go in. Or of course, because West Ham only got one game to rearrange, it might be that it doesn't go till near the end of the season.
One quick thing I wanted to talk about, James, before we get into the last four games.
I just looked, sorry, before you do, you got Norwich away in 36?
Oh, imagine Norwich twice. Fuck, save your triple captains, Pete. Well, I want to talk about elbows. Elbows. When players jump up and they raise their arms to use leverage to get to push against the other player and it hits the neck or the head. There was two situations in this game. Dawson caught Pedro and he caught him clear elbow in the arm, but it was a jumping motion. And then Diop got caught by Josh King. I'm pretty sure it was Josh King later on. And they both got caught with an elbow in the head. Not intentional, but they both got caught and nothing happened about it. But at the same time, I've seen Benteke when he played against us last season.
Yeah,
when the defender was behind him,
pulled out a little, unfortunately,
and he got sent off for the same thing. And I've seen Souček do the same, completely unintentionally, which I remember the VAR, and got sent off as well. And I'm like, what is the rule? Because I thought Dawson should have got, if his elbow caught Pedro in the back of the head because he's jumped with his arms up, it should be a red card.
But I've not seen the incidents, in all honesty. But if it's unintentional, then unfortunately his collisions will happen. If you're generally just, I think the key is always eyes on the ball, right? If your eyes on the ball, then it's kind of fine. Unless, and I use kind of a West Ham reference here, Andy Carroll was someone who used to do it out of control sometimes because he would go in so aggressively that he really is endangering an opponent. But I think in most cases, like it's almost impossible to jump without your arms, right? So if you're kind of doing that pulling motion, right? So your arms are going to go up. If you're watching the ball all the time, then I just think it's unfortunate. We've obviously seen some. I think, like, I know the Benteke one you're talking about, West Ham the other year, was really unfortunate in my opinion. There are some where like the ball will be in the air and the player will do the eyes thing and he has a look, and then that it's potentially premeditated, and that's different. So, but if people just watching the ball, and it's also protection for themselves, right? Because they might be getting elbowed. It's a natural instinct thing. You jump, oh shit, I'm watching the ball. What's coming on my side as well? So no, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, it's I think the inconsistency is my issue.
We don't want to see players getting sent off for accidental elbows in aerial challenges.
No. But we also want players to be careful. I mean, we're going to talk about Chelsea in a minute, and we'll talk about Rudiger. But yeah, it was just an observation. I was like, both of these, I've seen exactly the same thing, and I've seen players get sent off for this. It's just what is the rule and where's the consistency in it?
In fairness, I can't think of a circumstance this year where someone's been sent off for an elbow. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there has been. Tom Campbell, come back and do another quiz. Can you ask us? But I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
No.
So I wouldn't call that into question at the moment.
Right, we're going to rattle through some of these games because some are a bit routine, but also not. Leicester 1, Liverpool 0. Now Leicester obviously potentially no game now. Or there is no game now, is there?
Well, it's not definite. Norwich. Leicester could still have a fixture this game. That's what I'm saying, because you have to think about it. And I double checked on this last night, right? So Leicester are basically the biggest priority of all to rearrange fixtures. They've now got 3 games they need to rearrange: Everton away, Norwich at home, Tottenham at home. I really think the Tottenham fixture is going to go into 22. So that still leaves them the Everton away fixture, the Norwich home fixture. Also, bear in mind, look ahead. So there are 3 midweeks available now to Leicester. There's this coming midweek, which you think's got to be too late. There's the week after, which I think if we go beyond tomorrow night, is probably too late. There's obviously the midweek of 22. Leicester also are scheduled to play Chelsea in game week 27, which is the weekend of the Carabao Cup final. Now that might get postponed because obviously Chelsea are favourites to be in the final, right? Then suddenly you've now got 3 midweeks between now and April, and they've got 4 fixtures to rearrange because they're in the last 32 of the Europa Conference. Now, Brendan Rodgers might not give a shit about that trophy, like Tottenham didn't really give a shit about it, but they are the bookies' favourites to win that trophy at the moment, and they might go all the way. Now, if they go all the way in the FA Cup as well, they've got nothing. There is no midweeks. Because you have other games, FA Cup quarterfinals, FA Cup semi-finals, and the FA Cup final will go into the 3 available midweeks at the end of the season, which is 33, 36, and 37. So Brendan Rodgers can sit there and go, well, it's ridiculous rescheduling fixtures in January. I'm telling you, they need to fucking rearrange Leicester fixtures quickly, just in case. Because otherwise, Leicester really will end up in a scenario where they're playing every 2 days.
Are there any thoughts around going to Leicester this week, or unless the Norwich game is actually on, or are you going to skip it?
I'm going to Watford, mate. Not going to Leicester for a game that's postponed. I would have strongly considered Leicester. I mean, to be honest,
me too.
I've really considered buying Vardy before Liverpool to have it sitting there and ready for this. And because they are listen, if this comes back and bites me, fine. They are an absolute certainty for a double in game week 22, Leicester. And the other fixtures, Burnley away. And I still think it's really possible that they might even play in this game week. I still think that's really possible. I think the Everton fixtures the more likely. But again, we don't even know if it would be a 21 or a 22 fixture. So, I mean, you can't buy a player from a team that currently doesn't have a fixture just because it might. I mean, it's
crazy.
That's not going to happen. But there's some interesting options. I know that Harvey Barnes is back fit, and that's immediately got my interest, actually. Because I think he was beginning to show a bit of form again before his injury. Maddison, we now think is fit and has obviously been on a little bit of a streak. Vardy, we think's out for a few weeks. Iheanacho, I think, is going to AFCON, although after this Dennis stuff, I'm really not sure what's going on with that Nigerian squad. And Daka's also out at the moment. And that's why I mentioned Harvey Barnes might very quickly become of a serious interest. They fought so hard, Leicester. They changed a few things. The way they defended set pieces was different. They actually defended corners properly, which has been a big problem from not just this season, but in previous seasons as well. They played with a diamond, which is what I thought they would, although I thought they'd play that in front of a back 5 because they had real success when they changed to a diamond when they played Liverpool. I want to say it was in February when they won an early kickoff against Liverpool 3-1. So it didn't surprise me, but it didn't give them the offensive outlet. And as soon as they changed the system with Lookman on, they scored immediately. Then obviously they had something to hold on to, and it was obviously pretty heroic. I mean, it's clear in hindsight now that Vardy was absolutely fucked for the last 10 minutes and probably should have come off the pitch. But I don't know where you go with him because of the injury situation and no game. Probably Barnes immediately goes to the top of my list alongside Maddison for potentially 22. For Liverpool, it was a bad day at the office. I want to give Klopp some defence, by the way, because I've taking the piss out of him and a few things. The quote, which a lot of people have been circulating, like, honestly, go and watch the interview. Actually, it was nothing wrong with what he said at all. They've taken two different bits from the quote and put them together, and it looks really bad. But actually, no, he was just praising the fact that Leicester he wasn't complaining that Leicester would play twice in 3 days, which is what the quote made it look like. Actually, what he was saying was, wow, look how hard they've worked when they played 2 days ago. But because he'd said first, oh, it's clear why we lost, and then immediately said that, they put the two together. When you watch what he actually said, that's not what he meant. He meant to say, look how hard they worked. And he was very clear in saying Leicester deserved to win and stuff. They were really under par quite early in the game, Liverpool. And you could make arguments to say that they were under par a little bit at Tottenham as well. Now, at Tottenham, they were missing key players, but it was a key player that was also missing on Tuesday night in terms of Thiago.
Yeah.
Who I think ticks the ball lovely over for them. But they had Fabinho back in the team. They had Jordan Henderson back in the team. They weren't right. Van Dijk was obviously back in the team from the Tottenham game. They weren't right, Liverpool, but they still had the big Salah chance in the first half. Sadio Mane, I mean, his miss is as bad as Salah's penalty. How does he not score with that chance in the second half? So on a different day, Liverpool win 1 or 2-0, and we kind of, well, they weren't at their best. You put it to bed and forget about it. The pressure on that Chelsea game at the weekend now is absolutely massive. You think if City win on Saturday and then whoever loses that game's, I mean, to be honest, even if City win at Arsenal on Saturday anyway, both teams got to be looking at that difference going, fucking hell.
Not possible. Looking over their shoulders more than yours, but
I'm not going to rule it out because I sat
we did it before.
I'd sat here this time last year and went to Liverpool, got this league won. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. But you'd have to say
City on a roll.
I mean, in terms of City, I said to you a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like it might have even been last week. I said the team that suddenly wins 10 games in a row and the consistency that pulls away would be the team that wins it. City have just done it.
Yeah.
We've just blinked. We haven't even noticed. We've just won 10 league games in a row. I think from an FPL perspective, they're in a no-go zone, obviously, for Chelsea away this week. I think those who still got Salah have obviously got the decision to make, and a lot of that will be influenced by whether people think they're going to free hit in 22 or not. So obviously you can play him this week, and I still think, I'll tell you what, if I had him, I'd still strongly consider captaining him this week. Forget what happened at Leicester. That's more a decision based on they're playing Chelsea. He'll go up on Marcus Alonso's side, and they've got some issues, Chelsea. I think if I owned him, I'd still captain him this week. And obviously, if you're free hitting in 22, you only got a bench Salah for 1 week, and then he's back. So I completely get why it's not straightforward. And I think there might be some regret from those who have held and are now thinking of selling, because that would have been my plan before the Leeds postponement. Would have been Leeds, Leicester, sell now before Chelsea, back Sonny against Mo Salah. But if you really are convinced you're going to free hit in 22, just give a second thought before you sell, because then all you've got to do is get through the Palace game in 23 and you'll know you'll want him back. I think I see a lot of people talking about buying Robertson as obviously a James replacement, which if you're sitting there at the moment with, say, obviously Trent and Jota like I am, is a reasonable consideration, not for this week, but obviously for next week. So you hold it one more. Robertson's obviously suspended this week. Then you buy Robertson for Brentford at home, which obviously could be a double. And I'll find that difficult to resist, Suj. But I think it should be resisted because, again, it's one. You just think of the longer term and go, if I'm sitting there with Robertson, Trent and Jota, what's my avenue back to Salah? It'd arguably have to be through Jota, and I'm not sure that's a player I'd want to get rid of.
No.
So just consider that in your thinking.
Right, we've got 3 games to talk about quickly because we've been going over an hour, and we'll get to some Twitter questions. Chelsea won, Brighton won. Brighton played really well in this game.
They
gave
really
Chelsea
did.
Trouble when they played with high energy. We've obviously heard Lukaku is now obviously not a happy bunny at Chelsea as well. With Liverpool at home, City away, and then Tottenham at home, blank. Chelsea, are they in no-buy territory? And if you've got a Rhys James, obviously he's got to go.
Joe, it's really, I mean, it's got to go, but take that circumstance where you might think, well, I can get through it this week, and Robertson might be your solution. Then you hold on for a week, don't you? And you just bench him. It might be dependent for a lot of people in terms of what price they bought Rhys James at is also potentially an influence. He did drop to 6.3 last night, but that will go quite quickly, the value on Rhys James, I think. It's really interesting to see what's going to happen with this Lukaku situation. Now, there's a few things that do need clearing up. One, the interview took place a few weeks ago when he was kind of still injured, although I feel like it makes it worse because who are you to go talking about things when you haven't even been playing?
Yeah, agreed.
But it does make his general frustration worse. And I've seen the physical video, although it's in Italian, I've seen it dubbed in English by Sky, and it doesn't come across as bad as the worded mouth does, but the quotes are still, I mean, fucking hell, Tuchel will be putting him this morning going, what is that, mate? Like, because my reaction to it, seeing it was, well, if he wants to go, he can go.
Yeah.
Because I'm not being funny. Chelsea won a Champions League without him. No, he's not that essential. They've been coping without him. And we agree. We spoke last week and said, look, they probably do need him to actually have a realistic chance of winning the title. You can't carry a player like that if he's undermining the manager. And you can read those comments either way. I'm not bothered about the fact he said he wants to go back to Inter and all those things, because I think actually what he's done there is he's realised that actually he was possibly a little bit out of order in the way he left Inter. And he kind of wants to apologise to the old fan base. And I don't mind that. That's fine. And the fact he said he wants to go back to Inter in a few years, that's fine. That doesn't bother me either. It's the what he said potentially about undermining the manager. If what he meant was to say the manager's playing a different formation and I'm having to try and cope and be professional about it, like, you cannot say that in public. Because if that's the case, the manager should fuck him out the football club. Get rid. Say, no. Take a hit of 25, 30 million, get him out the football club. Because that's not on. Because he's a powerful player, Lukaku. He'll have a lot of respect, right? He's played at the top level. He's won things. So if that's his reaction, some of the younger people will look up to him. There's been a lot of talk recently about people looking up to Ronaldo and his body language now. People react. It's the same. People look at Lukaku and go, well, he's the £100 million signing, basically. If he's looking at it going, what's the manager doing? Then... But has he got the right to say that? Does anybody think Thomas Tuchel's done a bad job at Chelsea? They've had a bad month. No. But this is a guy who come in and transformed them from looking like they wouldn't qualify for the Champions League to actually winning the thing in the space of 4 or 5 months, right? So it's a dodgy one. Chelsea players won't go anywhere near at the moment from an FPL perspective. They're not in a good moment. And part of that is because of the COVID and the injury issues, as Thomas Tuchel said, but there are certainly other clubs suffering with that at the moment. Rhys James being out is a big blow because you're potentially enforcing Azpilicueta to play a lot of wing back, though it could be obviously Hudson-Odoi, Pulisic, we've seen play these roles. Possibly adds a little bit of appeal to Chalobah further down the line, depending on Rhys James' injury.
Yeah, but with the fixtures and the blanks, it's just not even worth it right now, mate.
No, I think you got Liverpool at home, then it's City away. They almost definitely will double in 22. I think it's beginning to look like Brighton away might be a little bit more likely than Arsenal at home. You could probably toss a coin between that. But even still, City away, Brighton away. Look at how Brighton just played against them. Are you
interested in any Brighton players?
I am and I'm not, Suj, because
Lamptey.
I'm looking at that 24 blank, and that's a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
I'm also looking at 21's annoying me because I think like them at Everton's a really tough call this weekend at this moment of time recording because we got no clue what state Everton are in.
Yeah, I mean, if Doucouré, Gray, Calvert-Lewin all rock up, suddenly you're like, all right.
In that case, you'll get even though it's an early kickoff. I know people talk about under the lights at Goodison, but having not seen their team play for a few weeks, they're going to be really desperate. I feel like their last home game was Arsenal, the Monday night game. So if you have that positive vibe and then they haven't played at home for 3 weeks, you're going to get...
Oh, no, sorry, that was away.
That was before Arsenal as well.
That was Brighton's game, sorry. You're talking about Everton's last home game. Yeah, it
was Arsenal, I'm sure. So it'll be a big atmosphere. Crowd will be up for it. That'll make it a challenging game for Brighton as well. Then it's Palace at home, and it's probably going to be part of a double. Now, whatever double doesn't look amazing, the best case scenario for them would be Palace at home, Tottenham at home. It could be Palace at home, United away, or Palace at home, Chelsea at home. Okay, playing double. Then they've got Leicester away, is Midland, then possibly blank. Then they've got a brilliant set of fixtures from game week 25 to game week 28. Then it gets rough again. So I feel like to invest in Brighton now would have to be a slightly longer term decision. Sanchez is reasonable for a goalkeeper option, particularly those looking to obviously bench boost if you haven't got, and you're sitting there with Ramsdale or De Gea or something. Lamptey obviously comes into thinking because, I mean, he's such an attractive player to actually physically watch, although I never get the massive impression that it's going to actually equate to FPL returns. Cucurella, listen to Tom Cantwell did a solo pod who got the assist last night, talking about kind of his baseline BPS is really high. So if he does hit anything like the assist in this game, he's going to be in the bonus and stuff as well. So he might be worth paying a little extra. Defense centre back's a little bit more difficult to call because we think Dunk is targeting a return in that Palace fixture. That might even change the system that they play. Trossard obviously didn't play, but it's been playing OOP. But then Welbeck's available at the moment. So is it back to Welbeck and Maupay up front? And Maupay, ironically, I know I take the piss out of him, but actually as a longer term pick for 8 game weeks or so, I think now might even be the time to start looking at him, you know. So there are loads of options, but that none of them, they all feel good, but none of them feel amazing. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's how it kind of feels with Brighton. I think they're probably going to be a pass on for me at the moment. Ironically, in spite of the fact they've got the 3 fixtures to arrange, there is a circumstance where they might not have a double at all. Is a possibility. It's very complicated. It would probably mean, and this is going to go way over people's heads, it probably means Arsenal's fixture with Burnley moving to a Sunday in game week 23. And in that circumstance, there's a possibility that Brighton wouldn't even have a double in 22. I'm not going to try and explain that. But I think they're going to pass me by. Chelsea definitely passed me by from an FPL perspective. They are in real danger of actually looking over their shoulder more than at Man City if they get a bad result at the weekend.
Another team they're going to pass us by is Brentford. They've not been particularly good. They were quite aggressive in your face, and they did give City a game. They gave
them a proper game, mate.
But they weren't ever going to get anything out of this.
What do you want them to do? They've lost 1-0 at home to Man City. You're going to
City could have turned it. Yeah, but I mean, City didn't approach this game in the same mood that they approached the Leeds game, for example, which was that they were just going to control it, and it was almost kind of training ground stuff. I mean, the goal, I haven't figured out yet if Foden's just amazing deft touch with his left foot, or De Bruyne put it on a plate so easily that he literally had nothing else to do other than, I'm just going to stand there, let it hit my left foot, and it's going to go in.
Yeah,
class goal. I'm now tempted to buy a City attacking midfielder and take the pain with the rough with the smooth and just leave it all season.
Brentford, just quickly, did you see Tony's tweet?
No, I didn't see his tweet after the game.
Absolute brilliant tweet after the game. Said, not the best kick about, Euro 11 stole our ball. Brilliant tweet. No, Brentford would not be of interest despite the Villa home fixture. We've got Liverpool and Man City away in 2 of the following 3. Then there's a really interesting run possibly from game week 25, which could include,
away.
If the Southampton game's not rearranged, it could lead to a double. I think the United fixture is probably going to end up in 22 for them as well. So, I mean, you're potentially looking at a double of Liverpool away, United at home. It doesn't overly appeal. If it's a treble game week with Southampton away, you might want to throw the goalkeeper in, but I told you I don't think much of him.
No chance.
Defensive, I mean, to be honest, all throughout the team, they've been hampered a little bit by injuries as well at the moment. But we've said, although they're doing all right and losing 1-0 at home to Man City is fine, I am a little bit concerned that a free fall and lack of goals might be coming into that team. City, what was your point, Suj? Sorry.
I'm going to get one of the midfielders and take the rough with the smooth and just leave it all season.
Then go and get Foden, mate.
That's the one that when he plays, he's either wide left or false 9. Whereas Bernardo or Gundogan can drop him deep sometimes, which is irritating. And Kevin De Bruyne, I'm never going to afford him. And Mahrez is only Champions League.
Right now, the only team who cannot double in game week 22 is Manchester City.
Yeah.
The only team now. The only team that haven't had a game postponed or don't have a game in the future that needs to be rescheduled. They're the only ones. So with Arsenal away and then Chelsea at home, with other teams having doubles, am I buying Man City players at the moment?
No.
No, sir, I'm not. I'm more looking at moving Bernardo Silva. Now, I'm not desperate to get rid of him. My thinking was obviously when I got him was, look, let's ride the wave. It could be what happened with Gundogan last year. It might not be. The value is going to hold for a little bit anyway. Let's see what happens. I think it's become clearer now to probably move him on. He played quite deep in this fixture, which I thought he would. Rodri, by the way, there's every chance he'll be back for the Arsenal game, which could suddenly put Bernardo back at false nine at Arsenal, for example. So I'm not desperate to move it on, although I want to. I would not be looking at buying City right now. We've got two difficult fixtures. Arsenal playing well at the moment. Two difficult fixtures, and we know that they're not going to double in 22. I think this can wait, but it doesn't mean those who've got doesn't mean sell. Like, I'd have no consideration for selling Cancelo, and there's plenty of others who have people like Foden who have now they've got the return to be feeling exactly the same. And I'm not saying you should. I just think City right now, although they're in imperious form, it's a no buy for me right now, Manchester City.
Yeah, I'm not quite. The thing is, right, when they're scoring so many goals, and I know this one was only 1-0, but they are in great form. They do, which is why you end up having to take the strategy of pick one and leave.
And I agree. And I agree with that.
If you keep trying to find the right one, you're never going to be successful. Foden for me is the one that I'm looking at, and I'm going to try and find a way of getting to Foden at some point. It may have to be after game week 22.
And that's why also I'm not desperate to move Bernardo Silva, because I know exactly what I just said. He might be false nine at Arsenal, where he might play on the right wing and he might get returns.
Yeah, he will.
So I'm certainly not taking like hits to move Bernardo Silva out. I might do during the double, but not during this week.
And last but not least, we've got Manchester United 3, Burnley 2. Burnley have plenty of games to catch up.
Burnley scored twice. Did I turn off early?
Burnley won. Sorry, Burnley won. I'm thinking about how many games do they have to catch up now. Burnley got 3 games to rearrange. So it's a bit of a difficult one with them because they haven't won in ages. But they have a double.
Burnley got 4 games to rearrange.
Wow. It's racking up.
Villa away, fast. Everton at home, Tottenham at home, Watford at home.
I suppose everybody's got at least 1 to rearrange now. But Ronaldo came to the party finally, as he does with certain games. He'll pop up at goal and assist, maximum bonus points, 12 points. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, he's inevitable. Like, if you don't own a player like this, you're not going into the Burnley fixture thinking, oh, he's going to blank again. Mine was a longer term decision in terms of, I think once he's in, say Kane, the difference I found with it is like if I end up going with Kane now, is I look at that and go Watford and then the double, and I know Chelsea away fine, there's an easy off. I look at Ronaldo's fixtures for the same period and go, oh, I'm going to struggle to get rid of him. And then the access point back to Salah becomes really difficult. That was part of my decision making on that. But yeah, it's fine. I think like Ronaldo in home games against weak opposition is very capable. And I mean, he missed a sitter of a chance before the McTominay assist. He's obviously ended up with a goal and assist. He could have had more. It was fine. It was quite an odd game because I mean, United raced into a 3-0 lead. I'm sitting there going, the atmosphere doesn't feel right in the ground. The intensity of the game doesn't feel right. And I don't think Burnley deserved to be losing 3-0 here. Although by that point, I didn't argue that United deserves to be winning it. It just felt like a bit of a strange game. It had a kind of an end of season feel to it, that like people were playing with intensity, but it wasn't really intense, if that makes sense. And that might be partly due to the quick turnaround of the fixtures and stuff. There's a point I'd like to make on United, which is interesting. It's non-FPL, but the balance of that team was better last night without Bruno. And all I mean by that is the 2 players be playing behind and Cavani and Ronaldo, and I think Cavani is good for Ronaldo. I think most people think that. The 2 players who played behind last night in Sancho and Greenwood have just more natural scope to want to get into wider positions. Take the second goal. I mean, Sancho drifts into kind of a natural left wing position and then comes in, and obviously the second goal happens. And I just felt it had better movement to kind of elaborate and move off of a 4-2-2-2 to actually at times being a 4-4-2, or there was times where Ronaldo actually dropped in to perhaps make up a little bit for the shortfall of Bruno's creativity. Because although shape looked better, you're obviously missing the whole creativity of the team's gone in terms of passing ability. And I thought Ronaldo dropped deep and actually made up for that quite well at moments in the game. but I felt the balance of the team was better without him. And that's not to say he won't come back in. He's too good a player. He's a magnificent footballer, Bruno Fernandez, who hasn't had a brilliant few months. I just wonder if Ranić might go, look, this is how I want to play. And Bruno doesn't fit the system very well. It's something that might escalate quite quickly. Talk while I clear my frog throat, please.
There we go. This is this type of season where everybody's got bugs flying around. On the other side, Burnley.
Well, double 22 is a certainty because they've got more fixtures to rearrange than anybody has to be.
I was going to say they've got more fixtures to rearrange than points, mate.
And it might be that it's double for them. It might be that it's treble game week, i.e. if the FPL 22 deadline moves forward, there's a possibility of that as well. The interesting thing with Burnley's rearranged games, obviously none of the teams, if we assume Tottenham are definitely out of the Conference League, which we think is the case, then none of the teams they play are in European competitions. So there's not a panic to rearrange them. And it was interesting listening to Sean Dyche's comment yesterday, basically saying they've had a little bit of COVID. Like I think Maxwell Cornet had it a couple of weeks ago, but they're one of the clubs that hasn't really had the outbreak yet. And it makes me a little bit nervous. The other thing that makes me nervous with Burnley is actually, if you just look at their next 8 fixtures, they're fucking terrible.
Brutal.
Leeds away, Leicester at home, Arsenal away, United at home, Liverpool at home, Brighton away, Palace away, Chelsea at home.
Yeah,
it's not a good run. And yeah, great, there's some doubles in there. But if your double drops and it's, I don't know, Liverpool at home and then Everton at home, like, are you desperate to play the Burnley defender? What's the point?
No.
So I think I'm going to stay off them. Although I do agree with what Jack Turfy Topper always says to us, our Burnley correspondent, always says, we will keep clean sheets at the times that you least expect it. And our defensive options are always brilliant cover for you on the bench. And that's absolutely correct. Loughton would be the one for me if you were going to go and buy and invest in it. But I'm really put off by just the general look of Burnley's fixtures, actually. I bet they have a good run, you know that. Yeah. They've had these runs before early in New Year, and you've blinked and gone, shit. I'm sure they had that the other year. It was like Arsenal, Leicester, United, and someone else, and they had like 10 points from 4. And you're like, how's that happened?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they do all right. I'm still convinced he'll stay up. But that's a dirty run for him. I'm not sure I want to invest. And then by the end of the day, we find out Chris Wood might have a treble game week and we were buying him, weren't
we? Yeah, that's the rundown of the games, James. We have some Twitter questions that we're going to get into as well. Why not on New Year's Eve? Have a little bit of fun. I'm hoping that people have got plenty of time on their hands to listen to us for basically the rest of the day. So, yes, before we do, anything else to publish for the guys this week? Deadline stream tomorrow. What time are you going live with that then?
It will definitely be 10 a.m, even if Arsenal Man City's postponed, because I'm going to Watford and the postman ain't delivered my fucking ticket yet. So I'm probably going to have to go to Vicarage
early to get
the ticket as well. Yeah. So the
no
deadline
stream.
Stream,
that's mad.
For away games, no.
Yeah.
No, still paper tickets. I'm going to Chelsea Wednesday night in the Cup as well. If Boris still allows me, touch wood.
Yep.
Still got team news stream for the patrons this evening as well. Advances, we've obviously got the differential show for all of our patrons today as well. I've still got to finish talking tactics for the advanced and intermediate tier patrons on Antonio Conte, but he's nearly done. So yeah, still plenty. Happy New Year, everyone.
Enjoy. If you are interested in becoming one of our patrons, head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. But I recommend doing it tomorrow.
As well wait tomorrow.
Yeah, do it tomorrow because it bills on the 1st of the month. So you're better off signing up tomorrow morning to listen to whatever tier you are interested in. And of course, we'll be back at you next week with a full schedule reviewing the games on Monday, followed by all the regular stuff, People's Poll, Sky Fantasy Football, Clash of the Correspondents, and all that jazz.
Clash of Correspondents, the next 2, by the way, Burnley v Leicester and Aston Villa versus Manchester United are the 2 lined up prior to Gameweek 22.
Good. Do you want to get into some Twitter questions, James?
Yes, let's do that.
Indeed. Okay, first and foremost, we've got Danny at FPL Sick of It says, what are the Planet FPL boys up to on New Year's Eve?
Fucking working, clearly.
Well, I don't think Mrs. Planet FPL wife is going to allow that.
No, I promised her. I've said to her like 6 o'clock. That's it.
Game over.
She said, "Are you busy today?" I said, "You need to leave me alone, but let me try and get done for 6 o'clock and stuff." Yeah, be night in. We're not going anywhere, mate.
Nah, I've been invited around some friends locally. There's only 4 of them. So currently the plan is to go there.
I absolutely hate New Year's Eve, by the way.
Me too.
I
want
can't
to sit at
stand
home.
it. Everyone gets to 12:15 and realizes they're not drunk and is like, oh my God, I've got to get paraleg. And by 12:15, those same people within half hour have managed to get themselves paraleg and are now crying on a curb. That's what New Year's Eve normally looks like.
Yeah, I think that's the plan for me. There's a question coming in from where do we have it here? FPL Reaper aimed at me. Who is the best James replacement? I'd take anyone, mate. I'd take Tom Cantwell, who got the assist.
I knew he was
I'd
going to
take
say
Brandon
that.
and Josh.
Tom Campbell.
Fucking always cheating. I'd take any of the people on any scout video. I'd take Mark and Az off Black Box. I'd even anyone I would replace James with happily. So send your CVs in if you're an FPL content creator. Wayne Robinson wants me to team up with Tyrek Lamptey, but I don't know if he's particularly interested in an FPL podcast, mate. To be honest,
he's about the same height as me. He's a little bit more rapid,
quicker. Yeah, he's a little bit quicker. Wayne Robinson really wants Tyrek Lamptey to be bought by people. I think he already owns him because he's replied to every question that we've had in Twitter about replacing Rhys James with Tyrek Lamptey. Bio_man says Benrahma back in contention, 2 goals in 2 now. He's going to AFCON. Yeah, he's going to the AFCON after the game tomorrow. So no point. Look at Bowen or Vlasic. I'd take Bowen over Benrahma any day.
Basically, all the African players are playing this weekend and then they're going to AFCON, except I assume right now, not Emmanuel Dennis.
FPL Lefty Lagers, keep or sell Ronaldo to Kane is the kind of second part of that question. With their fixtures coming up, I don't see how you can sell Ronaldo.
No, this is part of the point of what I was saying was I was like, I mean, for me, Ronaldo was probably after Salah the best captaincy choice this week if you were going against. And I think those who made that decision would be very happy with that. But I was just so unhappy with what I saw at Newcastle. Plus, as I said, the looking beyond and going, right, okay, this Wolves at home, that's not great, let's be honest. Although I think, again, those are going against, you can go Ronaldo again. Of course, you can with the armband. It's Villa away, they're improved. West Ham at home's not easy. I know you're not in the best shape defensively, but it's not an easy game. Then it's the point I want Ronaldo back, Salah back. And at that point, Ronaldo's got Burnley away, Southampton at home, Leeds away, and Watford at home is his next 4. The fuck am I selling him? I can't. You couldn't. Yeah. You can't. If you're thinking you're going to go Ronaldo back to Mo Salah at Gameweek 24, I'd possibly think again, because selling Ronaldo for Burnley, Southampton, Leeds, and Watford will be really, really tough. That's Ronaldo's best 4 of the season, basically, in terms of a condensed little period. And it does throw up the idea of, could you go against Mo Salah and not buy him back? Leicester at home, wait for Liverpool. Leicester at home, Burnley away, Norwich at home that could become a double game week in game week 26 because Liverpool don't have a Champions League fixture in the midweek afterwards. So, I mean, ideally, you'd want the 2 of them both sitting there for that period, but the priority would still be for me is Mo Salah.
2 more questions, James. One's quite straightforward, one possibly a little bit more difficult. At Cyrus Bernard, do you think wildcard in Game Week 21 followed by bench boost in 22 is an option worth taking if fixtures are released or not? If not, no chance. And the only reason I say that on if the fixtures are not released, you still think wildcard in 21 followed by bench boost in 22?
Of course, it's an option.
For me, it's like a case of if there were not another 15 fixtures that still needed to be rearranged, I'd be more willing to say, go on, take a punt on it. But because there's so many games left to rearrange, I reckon there's going to be an opportunity where you have more information.
Look, all you can do, let's think of it like this is quite important, probably as advice. There will be a lot of people have activated. They're on it now. They've tried to get price rises and stuff, which is generally, if you're going to wildcard, it's what we'd advise. Go and do it. Play the market a little bit. Fine. I get that. Those people are now sitting there, 24 hours deadline, currently you're blind. The only thing I can advise you is the teams that look absolutely certain to double are the teams that you should consider. Now, it's just sound logic that the teams that have more games to rearrange have got to have a double. There are certain circumstances like Leicester. Leicester have to have a double in game week 22. Someone at the Premier League needs putting against a wall if Leicester don't have a double in that game week. Burnley have 4 fixtures. They're highly likely to double. The majority of the European teams you would think are going to double in game week 22. Though, as said, West Ham and Norwich is a little bit awkward. It means moving something else. And I don't think it's a guarantee that Liverpool will double in 22, actually, because I think they might put some resistance up. Why would they want a fixture arranged when Salah and Mane are at AFCON?
Yeah,
I think they might try and put some resistance up. But obviously Liverpool could suddenly have a double of Brentford at home and Leeds at home, and looks like porn actually, even without Salah and Mane. But you can only make your best kind of estimated guesses. Watford are definitely going to have a double at some point.
Surely that's a reason why maybe if you don't need to.
Well, the number one reason I don't like it in terms of wild carding to bench boost. I mean, there's that you can't be guaranteed on the fixtures. But I don't like it from what I discussed on the last podcast on Monday, which was what happens if an FA Cup third round match is postponed. There is every chance it will get played in the midweek following game week 22. So a game that's rearranged could yet get postponed again anyway because of the FA Cup, and of course could get postponed again anyway because of COVID. We're in a situation where what do you want on a bench boost? You ideally want 15 players who are going to play twice, or 13 or 14. And you got people like Trent who've got a single, or Cancelo or whatever. Fine. Generally, you want as many fixtures as possible. It creates a situation where not only can you not be sure that your player will play twice, you cannot even be sure that the player's team will play twice. And that's why I don't like bench boosting in game week 22. I learned this in like many people last year with the Leeds postponed. Remember, Leeds Southampton got postponed because Southampton and Shrewsbury got postponed in the FA Cup. I would far rather use the bench boost at the moment later in the season, when at least I can say, okay, well, if my player doesn't play, it's because of injury or because he's been rotated or something. You're in the hands of the gods from a bench. What happens if you've got, I don't know, let's say you've got 3 Liverpool players and they've got a double, and then suddenly the second fixture against Leeds doesn't happen or something. Well, let's say both fixtures. Imagine that. Let's say both fixtures don't happen.
Yeah.
Because they've got COVID cases or something. Then what? Your bench boost's gone.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like it. And for most people, it's going to fall absolutely magnificently and it's going to work out for them. Absolutely, definitely. But this is why I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, the content creators are against bench boost 22. No, I'm not actually. It's me saying that this is why it's not for me. And it's just to say, these are the dangers. For many people are going to bench boost in game week 22 and they're going to do spectacularly well, even without seeing the fixtures.
A couple more questions, James, which I wasn't going to plan to ask, but I'm going to now anyway, because I've just seen them come up. Firstly, deadline stream tomorrow. A lot of people who don't tune in won't know that you have a top 5 or top 10, to be honest with you, captaincy picks. But give me your top 5 as it stands right now, because a couple of people have asked who you're going to captain.
I haven't even thought about it.
I've got it bust on Son at the moment.
Oh, I'd say I haven't thought about the top 5. I've thought about who my captain is. It's almost definitely going to be Heung-min Son for myself. If I had Salah, I'd still go with him this week.
Okay.
I think I would probably be Salah, Son, Ronaldo in that order, I think.
Okay. Tom FPL Physio, this is a great question, James. How are you going to react when the fixtures are announced a few hours after recording?
Like, inevitable.
Like it hasn't happened about a dozen times before.
I'm just going to retweet whatever Krellin tweets, right?
We're only recording a pod so that it forces the official account to sort out their fixtures. Yeah, inevitable. Lucky we're saving our Patreon differential show as late as possible in the day.
The thing is, we can't even... It's difficult, kind of. There's 20 games to rearrange, right? So to know exactly which games are going to get arranged and even in which week is impossible. There are too many combinations to be absolutely 100% accurate. All you can do is kind of advise, like we've done, like Ben Krellin's doing, and saying, look, these are the possibilities. This can happen, etc. But we don't even know when the fixtures are going to be announced. We can't even have any confidence to say it will be today. It will be tomorrow. What I would have confidence to say is that by Saturday evening, if by the time everyone's gone to bed on New Year's Day and there's no fixture announcement, then there's no fixtures going in between the 11th and the 13th. That has to get announced now. It's not fair on football supporters who have got to do the travelling and stuff.
Yeah.
Can't be telling Watford fans to go to Burnley at like a week's notice and on a midweek in January. So it's not on if that's what it ends up being.
And last question of the show goes to Steve Jones. Steve, hope you're doing all right, mate. Question for you both. You may have previously been asked something similar. In a parallel universe where West Ham and Spurs don't exist as football clubs, who do you think you would have both grown up supporting?
Oh, what a dirty question.
See, the irony for me is that had I not supported West Ham, I'd have probably supported Spurs because I've always told the story of my two older cousins. One was Spurs, one was Liverpool. But if you remove Spurs from the equation as well, then I would have defaulted to Liverpool. I mean, grew up late 80s, early 90s. So I think other than obviously a bit of Barnet, my local team that I went to every now and then. Well, actually, I didn't go every now and then. I season tickets for a couple of years, but season ticket back then was 20 quid, mate. A whole season, not per game. I would have supported Liverpool, I reckon. Would have been the club.
I guess based on location, I would have probably been forced into supporting North London's other club, and that would be Barnet.
Yeah, indeed. Not Enfield Town, no?
No, it falls under EN postcode, doesn't it?
Okay, so Enfield Town for James, Liverpool for me. That, I think, is plenty for everybody's plug holes. So we call it a day with this episode. Of course, stay subscribed wherever you're listening to the podcast so that you get notified as soon as anything else goes live. Other than that, keep cool. It's all good. It's just a game. And most importantly, stay safe because we'll be back at you on Monday with a whole week of content. Ciao for now.
It's definitely just a game. Be nice to each other. Happy New Year, everyone. Cue music, please, man, child.